This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hey there guys, I'm Cameron Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge, and you can help us keep it that way by making a contribution to our Karma Jar. To learn more, visit our website. Hey there guys, and welcome to another episode of SketchUp, a 3D toolbox. This is episode number 51. Now in our last episode, we started the Kaweah House project. Now I'm really excited about this project. As you can see, this house is absolutely gorgeous. It stretches across a river. It's absolutely amazing. And today we're going to continue working on our model. Now in our last episode, we modeled the exterior walls based off of a floor plan. In this episode, we're going to do the same thing for the interior walls and stack up some of the different floors of this house. So let's get started. Now what I've got here is I've got our project as we left it in our last episode. If you haven't been following along with us, you can download this model as it is right now off of our website. And you can see that we've got all the exterior walls pretty well modeled. Those are looking really good. Now we just need to do the same thing for the interior walls. Now one thing you'll notice about this model right off the bat is that we can't see the floor plan through the floor that we model here. So we're going to have to fix that before we can model the interior walls. So we need to be able to see where these walls are going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the floor plan image because we imported it as just an image, which means that SketchUp treats it just like a regular object. So we can select it and manipulate it just like any other face in SketchUp. I'm going to switch to the Move tool, click once, and now I can move this floor plan around. Now we don't want to move it left or right or forwards and backwards at all because we want to be exactly in the same location. We just want to move it up so we can see it through the floor. So I'm going to click, I'm going to hit either the up or down arrow key to lock the Move tool into the vertical axis like this. And you can see that eventually it pokes through the floor. If I look here, you can't see it, and then once I poke it up all the way through, you can see it just fine, and you can see those walls on the inside. Now, if you recall correctly, the floor that we modeled was 8 inches thick. So let's go ahead and type in 8. There we go. Now, at first, you might think that didn't do anything because we still can't see it. Well, that's because now the floor plan is in the same location as the top of our floor on the inside of our house, but we've still got the actual floor there. So we need to remove the floor just temporarily. So if I go to the garage here and click on this face here and delete it, you can see that in its place we can now see the garage and office. So let's go ahead and select the other portions of the floor here and delete those. And now you can see we can see straight through with all these walls here. So that's great. Now let's go ahead and start modeling these. Now we're going to use the same basic technique. We can see let's start with this wall right here. In this whole building here, you just got this one wall separating the garage and office. So let's start with there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, with the tape measure tool, click on this wall here and stretch out a guideline that is in the same axis as the wall we want to model. And I'm going to go over to the wall in the floor plan, and I'm actually going to line up this guide with the very center of this line. Right? So I'm not going to line it up with an edge or anything like that. I'm actually going to line it up with the very center. And you can just kind of eyeball it just best you can. And you can see it's looking like about 7.5 inches roughly. I always like to type in a manual variable rather than 7 feet and 1 1/16 of an inch. Weird numbers like that. I like to kind of round it off. So let's go with just 7.5 inches. So we'll do 7 apostrophe and then 0.5 for half an inch. Now you might think that the guideline hasn't gone down because you can't really see it, but if you zoom out a little bit, you can see the guideline is there. It's just that over the top of that line, it's difficult to see. But it's still there, which means that we can snap a real line on there, which is what we're going to do. Now the reason I had the guideline go down the center of this drawn line here, rather than across an edge, is because we want all of our interior walls to be 6 inches thick. That's a pretty standard thickness. And the trouble is that these lines, like I said, are drawn, which means that to scale like this, they're not going to be 6 inches thick exactly. So we need to kind of split the difference a little bit by drawing a two-dimensional line straight down the middle of this drawn line and then extending that 3 inches on either side. We'll know that we're getting a 6-inch line exactly where we want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the guide tool, tape measure tool, and you can see even though I can't see that guideline, I can still snap to it. You can see it says online right there. So just kind of hover your cursor over the center until it snaps like that. And then we're going to click and drag out 3 inches to the right, another guideline, and then do the same thing to the left, like this. So now we've got those guidelines lining up exactly where we want our wall to be. Now we can take the line tool and snap. You can see that if we hover, we get those little X's right there, there, and there. Let's find the X on the far right and take a line segment all the way across here. Good. And you can see the instant we did that, we redrew the line, which meant SketchUp recalculated where all of its faces were, so it redrew the floor for us. But you can see now that we've got that kind of purple background, we can see where our guidelines are. So we want to just skip the center one and just draw another real line all the way across like this. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the command up in the Edit tool, up in the Edit menu, just delete guides. That'll get rid of all of our guidelines. So now we've kind of split our floor right where we want our wall to be. Now, of course, SketchUp drew this in this face inside out. You can see we've got the purple side facing out. We don't want that. So let's select these faces here, right-click on them, and choose Reverse Faces. That causes the white side to poke out. That's the front. We want that facing out. And then I'm just going to use the Push-Pull tool and choose this interior wall here and just pull it up like this. Just 8 feet like that. And you can see now we've got a perfect interior wall for our garage and office. So that's great. Now let's do the same thing for the rest of the walls inside of our house. Let's move over to this section here. And we don't have a full wall dividing this one. We just have a little portion of wall that's sticking out. And it's also sticking out at an angle. You can see that this back wall here isn't at an exact right angle. It's kind of sloped outward like this. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, but let's figure it out. So we'll switch to the tape measure tool again, and I'm just going to, just like I did before, grab a guideline out from this edge and pull it over until it's right about in the center of that guideline, which looks like it's going to be about 6.5 feet. So I'll do 6.5 feet, like that. And you can see in this case, I can actually kind of see my guideline once it gets out of that black line right there. So once it gets over into the white area here, I can see the line just fine. So I'll actually go ahead and pull out my other guidelines over here so I can see what I'm doing. 3 inches on that side, 3 inches on that side to give me a 6 foot. And then I'll go ahead and choose another guideline because this particular wall isn't going to stretch across the entire room. You can see that here it starts on this side, but it only goes out to here. This side is completely open. This is like a doorway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a guideline, but I'm not going to take a guideline from this wall because this wall is at an angle. So you can see it's going to stretch it out kind of weird. I'm going to take it from this wall because this is at a right angle. And I'll just kind of line it up with the edge right here. And it looks like about 4'6". So I'll go ahead and type in 4'6". There we go. So that right there, that is what I want my wall section to be. So I'll go ahead and switch to the line tool, and I'll draw that. So I'll draw a line across here to mark where I want the edge of my wall to be. And then I'll take another line, and I'll just stretch it back. I'll lock it to the green axis, and I'll stretch it back until it hits this wall right here. Good. And then I'll do the same thing over here. These two line segments are going to be different lengths because the wall is at an angle, but you can see once I do that, it fills in the floor. I'll go ahead and delete my guides, get those out of the way. And then I can take this chunk of wall here and extrude it up like this. So there you go. That is looking great. Now let's go ahead and do it for the rest of the house here. All right, now you can see one thing that I did here in the floor plan. It looks like there might be stretches of wall that kind of poke out on either side here. But in a floor plan, that actually means there's going to be a door there. Now, a door, on a floor plan, you want to specify that there's going to be an opening there. But in the case of a SketchUp model, a door is just a hole that you punch in a wall. So you do actually want a wall there. So we're going to go ahead and make those solid walls, and then we'll know once we go through and add the doors and the windows and things like that, we'll know to punch a hole in that wall for the door. So once I've got that all worked out, I can just use the push-pull tool and extrude these walls up 8 feet. There we go. Looks like I got a little extra chunk of line right here. You want to watch out for that. If you draw a line a little bit too long, you might get little stray hairs almost. Now here's another set of interior walls here. This is a bathroom over in this section of the house. There's a couple things I want to point out. Once you move over to this section of the house, remember that this area is at a slightly different angle than the rest of the house. So what you want to do is, once you get over here, your guidelines are going to start doing some very strange things unless you reset your axis. So what I want to do is I want to go over to the axis tool here and go over to this corner right here and just reset my axis like this. Right? That way, compared to this section of the house, my guidelines will all be at right angles compared to all of these walls. You'll remember this from our previous episode when we were drawing the exterior walls. We had to reset our axis a few times. So now we're going to start working on this bath area. Now you can see that if I zoom out a little bit and you get kind of a bird's eye view of the floor plan, this bath is like a square, basically, with one corner of it poking into the master bedroom here. Now, this affects the way we draw our interior walls, because if you look at something here, you can tell that this little chunk of wall here that kind of goes like this, we want to make sure that that lines up with the inside of this wall right here, right? So what I'm going to do that is, rather than causing a guideline to be centered exactly with this wall over here, like we've been doing, I'm going to actually take a guideline here and just draw a guideline out and have it line up exactly with this wall section here, right? And then I'll stretch out another guideline over here, 6 inches, rather than the 3 on one side and 3 on the other. I'll just go 6 inches from this, and that is where we want this chunk of wall to be. That way, when we model it, it will line up perfectly with this wall over here. And then based on that, I can draw another guideline like this. And this one, we don't need to worry about it lining up with anything, so I'll go for the center of this one, which is going to be about 11'4". And then I'll draw a few guidelines out on either side here, 3 inches, and another 3 inches. And you can see where they intersect right here. So I'm going to actually go ahead and just use the rectangle tool to kind of speed things along here, rather than drawing each individual line. And draw those walls like that. Go ahead and delete the guides. And then where those rectangles intersect right here, you can see we got a few stray lines. I'll go ahead and delete those. And then you can see that once I pull this up, it lines up with this wall right here beautifully. So much so, in fact, that I could use the eraser tool and swipe across here and delete that line and make it one continuous wall. And I would actually recommend you do that. Now, that is looking really good, so let's finish up the rest of the house here. All right, now as you can see here, this is looking really great. I've got all the interior walls done for this house. So now I'm ready to move on to the next step of this episode, which is going to be stacking these individual units that we've built into the final house by layering them on top of each other to make the different floors. So let me show you what that means exactly. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our floor plan, select it, and basically undo what we did at the beginning of the episode, where I'm going to push it down 8 inches. That way it's lined up with the very bottom of all these rooms that we've built. And then I'm going to go ahead and group each of these chunks of rooms. Because you can see, if I triple click, for instance, on this center part of my house here and select all the adjacent faces, you can see it only selects this chunk of the house. So I'll go ahead and group that together. And I'll do the same thing for the garage here. And you can see when I do that for the garage, it only selects the garage. So each of these little rooms here are separate. And the reason for that, if you look at the floor plan, as you can see over here, for example, this says guest bedroom and bath below patio. So this is the patio right here. This goes below it. And if you look at some of the photos that we have in the gallery of the Kaweah Falls House, you can see that there are rooms on top of each other. It is, in fact, a multi-story house. So we're going to go ahead and stack these rooms on top of each other the way they are in the model. So we're really going 3D with this. So the first thing is all of these rooms over here, this room and this room, these two rooms, go underneath this room and this room. So I'm going to select the garage and the main house area, and I'm going to switch to the Move tool, and I'm going to grab them by the very bottom corner right here. Doesn't matter where exactly, just as long as it's the very bottom. And I'm going to pull them up, and I'm going to snap over to the very top of this room here. All right? So that way you can see that area of the house is now above these two areas, and now we just need to move these two guys into place. So if you look on the gallery, and this is where having some real photos of the actual house comes in really handy for a project like this, you can see that over in this area here, we have these two buildings that are kind of right on top of each other. Those are the master bedroom and the guest bedroom. So those go right on top of each other, and you can see that there's kind of like a corner that lines up exactly. And if we look in our project here, we can see that corner. So this corner right here and this corner right here need to line up perfectly. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to grab, first off, we're going to grab this lower part of the house, because this is what we're going to move. We're going to grab it by the top part of that corner right there. Right? And then we're going to do this in two steps. First, we're going to move it left to right, and then we're going to push it back. You can't do it all in one swoop because we don't have anything to snap to underneath that floor. So what I'll do first is I'll switch to the right axis, and I'll snap over to this corner right here. That gets us in the right, left and right position, and then we're going to select the same corner again, choose the left axis, and push it back and snap to that corner. And you can see when I do that, they line up perfectly. And you can really start to see the house starting to kind of emerge from all of these lines and faces now. If you look at this area of the house compared to the picture, you can see they're really starting to look very similar. Now let's do the last part, which is this room right here, which goes underneath this patio. But this is where, again, having photos of the real house comes in very handy, because if you look at this photo, you can see quite clearly where these things intersect and how they're supposed to be stacked on top of each other. And you can see that that doesn't line up with what our floor plan and model is saying right now. Now see, this is the tricky thing. Floor plans aren't always 100% accurate. And sometimes you do have to modify them to kind of make the rooms fit the way that you can tell they actually do in photos. So what we're going to do here is, you can see that this chunk of the room here, actually first, before I move anything, I need to reset my axis so that my axis aren't at a strange angle again. There we go. So you can see that if I were to take this room here and move it underneath here, you might think that that's where it would go normally. But if you look at the photo, you can see that this part of it actually sticks out more. So you can see in that photo we've got a door over on the right there. This part actually comes out a little bit like this, and the patio needs to come out with it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to modify the patio up on top a little bit. Now, I've gone ahead and made the measurements here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this house here. And this is the kind of thing that you really do need to eyeball quite a bit. But I'm going to use the push-pull tool and pull the patio out so it lines up with this wall right here. And then I'm going to push it out another 4 foot 3 inches. So I'm going to take it and just type in 4 foot 3. Good. So that corner right there, that is, you can see like the wall with the door would go right here. So I'm going to select our room by this corner and pull it underneath here and line it up like that. There we go. So you can see that's looking a bit more like it. If I move over here, you can see that this right here, this is where that door would go, right? And now we just need to modify the patio a little bit more so that it lines up with this room underneath. So I'm going to take this chunk of the patio here and push it back so it lines up with this wall here. And then we just need it to stretch out a little bit here, because you can see this is where the stairs in the photo would go. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to draw a quick line right here. And then I'm going to push this guy out so it lines up with that wall. And you can see there, that looks more like the photo, right? Because the photo we know is accurate. The blueprint and the floor plan, not 100% accurate all the time. So this is looking really good. You can really start to see the house starting to emerge from the model. So this is looking really great, and I can't wait until next episode where we will continue to make this the Kaweah Falls House. Now, until next time, be sure to visit our website at www.harwoodpodcast.com. If you have any problems with the model, go to that website and check out the SketchUp show notes so you can download the lesson file. You can see this model as it is right now, and you can also download the model as it was at the beginning of the episode if you go back to the episode 50 show notes. Also, be sure to friend us up on Facebook and check out our badge program. We just added a brand new badge called the Kaweah House badge. So if you model any of the Kaweah House from these lessons and send me the file, you can get this Kaweah Falls badge. Other than that, if you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can send me an email at cameron@harwoodpodcast.com. Until next time, guys, goodbye and good modeling.